Is your business missing its sales goals? You're not alone. With the right leadership, even the best teams can fall short. Meet your new secret weapon, an experienced fractional sales leader from Sales Director Central. With deep expertise and a proven sales framework, they'll lead your team to success without the full-time costs. Watch your revenue become predictable and sustainable, and free up your time to work on the business. Unlock your sales potential and sleep better at night. Reach out to Sales Director Central today. Welcome to the DevReady podcast. Joining me on the DevReady podcast today, I have Paul Sargent. Thanks, Paul, for jumping on and recording an episode today.
My pleasure, Anthony.
Well, I'll let you take away an introduction of yourself and give us a bit of a background, because I seem to never do a good job.
Yeah, no problems. So the business that I have at the moment is called Sales Director Central. We help mostly small businesses that have a product or service. It's a complex product or service that they need to sell direct to a business, B2B. We would describe ourselves as fractional sales leaders, but that's just a label. What we do, we go in and we help the organisation set up and establish a sales business. It's not outsourcing sales to us. You still own the salespeople, and we put a framework in place and run sales on your behalf to the point in time where you can actually have a full-time sales leader in place. The reason I'm in that business is I've actually got a tech background. I've got a programming degree. Realised I was not too good at programming, and pretty much made my whole career out of being in that gap between the technical teams and the business teams. So I went through the standard pre-sales and consulting businesses into sales businesses, sales leadership, CEO type roles, but pretty much sit in between the tech and the business with a focus mostly on sales and sales leadership.
Okay, so that's a unique position to be in. I know there's normally pre-sales people that work in the tech businesses, but they don't generally have the tech background.
Yeah. I found it fascinating, the tech side, but I found it more fascinating to understand how the business uses tech and the outcomes that they get from using that. And so I've been on both on a product side and on services, so complex services as well.
Okay, and they can get quite complex to explain, and then probably trying to differentiate on what you're offering is probably where you go in with some of the leadership and coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that you find in that complex sales environment is the number of people that get involved in the decision-making process. You know, often you think that you're selling to one person or two or three people, but sitting in behind it, we've had up to 40 people involved in the decision-making process in a large organisation. When you include, security teams, legal teams, tech teams, purchasing teams, finance teams, HR, occupational health and safety, just so many people get involved in decision.
Yeah, it's once you get to those larger, more complex products, and then you're going to enterprise deals. We've had contracts that have been floating around for 6 months plus, trying to get things across the line. It's very rare to have things move very quickly. As you said, there's so many layers involved, and everyone wants to have their 2 cents thrown in.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the things that you notice, I don't know if you notice it in those complex sales, is that they go quickly at the start and slow at the end.
Yep, that's exactly how it is.
And the reason is, the way that we sell is that we do all the work at the start and we're asking them to do all the work at the end.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. It's them pushing it through, talking to the right people, getting the right approval, going up the chain.
That whole internal sales process, right? How do I get it through my own business? And we're asking them to do a lot of work, and it does slow down. And we're constantly talking to our clients about looking at what the buying process is, not what your selling process is.
True, because if you can match your process to their buying process, and you can fit those pieces together better, it's obviously going to move faster. So that's a little nugget there that it just makes sense once you say it out loud.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. There's no rocket science involved in what we do. It's mostly common sense.
Yeah. So just a little bit of background from myself, just so you're aware of as to what level I have an understanding of sales processes and things. So then we can have a better conversation.
Yep.
I've been running the business for 16 years with my business partner. We started when we were in uni, so no formal training of anything to do with business or sales. We've had to just learn how to wear all the hats as we go.
Yep.
We're in your position. Can code if I need to,
yep.
But I'm also one of the salespeople in the business, pushing things out and explaining the processes and convincing people that we know what we do. We know what we know, and we know how to do it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so when you come into an organization like ours or another business, what sort of processes do you go into to then be able to set them up to have that sales structure?
Yeah, the first thing that we do is what we call a blueprint. And as part of the blueprint, we've got a 75-point checklist that basically measures the sales DNA of your business. And the framework that we put in, that we look at, guides us about where the gaps are. And so we interview key stakeholders, the founders of the business, the owners of the business, the executive team, the salespeople and the sales team, sometimes cross into marketing because that has an impact on sales as well. We look at proposals, presentations, sales meetings. So we go quite deep in being embedded in your organization. So we're actually in your organization for somewhere between 6 and 12 months. And so that initial month is where the bonding happens, if you like, where we really get in-depth knowledge of your business and we start to then make those corrections, if you like, and start to implement the framework. And think of the framework as when you go through the development process, you've got a development framework. So everybody is on the same page with what has to happen with dev. Like we've got a stand-up meeting here, we've got this user stories, the epics, all that sort of stuff. Everyone's talking the same language, and you know how to develop a piece of software from the initial, ideation piece all the way through to deploying it and maintaining it. That's a complete development framework. When you think about sales, you don't have that. You might have a sales process that's been mapped into the CRM, but that only tells you about what happens when you've got a lead to try and win it. What are all the other things that happen in the sales business, that in a sales function, that need to happen? So that's the framework we put in, everything from the planning that has to happen and commission plans, in how do we hold people accountable, what are the KPIs that we're going to look at, how are we going to run our meetings, and all the way through everything that you could imagine would happen as a sales function, a sales business unit. So not just the sales process.
Okay, because I think when most people think sales, it's just how do we get people paying for whatever we're trying to sell? And then it's how does that map to a pipeline in a CRM, really, which is what are the stages I need to consider, and then to try and marketing something is sold.
That's right. And often that's what's happening is as a sales rep, we're quite goal driven. And so we set up a CRM, and our goal is to get as far through that sales process as we possibly can. And you're shoving proposals out the door just so you can tick a box that I've got a proposal to them, when at that point in time they might not even need a proposal or want a proposal, but you send it out the door. And that's one of the things we look at, is what's your sales process compared to the buying process, which I've mentioned, but also what are we measuring? Because if you tell a sales rep, I'm going to measure how many proposals you send out the door, guess what? You get lots of proposals go out the door. But if you measure a sales rep on how many proposals have you sent out the door where the customer or the prospect has asked for a proposal, that's a different metric.
Yes, it is. A bit more specific, a bit more useful probably.
That's right. So a big habit in sales teams is we measure any activity, and so reps just are busy for the sake of being busy, whereas we want them to be busy on the right sort of activity.
Yeah, we've got a client that's sort of like in the culture coach, and his statement is busier than normal, but it's, are you spending your time on the right things? Like you said, so if you're asking them to just send out proposals, they'll just be sending a proposal to anyone that talks to them. If it's going to get it one number closer to their end of week goal or monthly goal, then that's what they're going to target.
That's right. It measure them all the way. Like you got to make 10 calls this week. Well, I could drop in at the local McDonald's. There's a call.
Yeah, call the doctor, call the mechanic. There's another two taken care of. Whether they're necessary or useful, it's completely wrong sort of thing. But so if you're just starting out and you know that you need to try and sell, and then like if you're me 15 years ago and you're just trying to, all right, we know we can do something. We've got a loose way of describing it. It's putting down the framework of refining how to describe that product, service, or offering the first thing that you do.
I'd say not. I think the most important thing up front, and you would have done this, is you started the business for a reason. All right? You saw a gap in the market and you went, I need to do this, and you've got a great why you're doing it.
Yep.
And when you go out and sell initially, as the founder of the business, you know what that why is, what the purpose is, what the passion is, and you go out and talk to people about that. You don't try and sell them anything. You just talk about your why and your reason and your passion.
Okay.
And in those early days, when you've got a solution that you're selling, you're interested in feedback on that product because you're in what we call the research phase. Like, I'm getting my early version of the product out. I want to know what I should improve in it to get better and better. But then you get to a relatively mature product and you're in the revenue phase where it's, I don't need any more feedback on the product. You're still going to get it. But I'm more interested in how do I grow revenue? How do I scale this thing? And they often call this the scale up phase, right? Or the growth phase. It's at that point in time where you really need to think about the framework around sales, because it's at that point in time where you would have thought, I need to hire a sales rep. And in a technical business, sales reps are a completely different breed to try and manage.
Is that the lack of technical background?
Different driver. Like, if I ask someone who's technical to talk to me about themselves, one of the things that they'll do is try and not prove, but it's sort of getting towards that. They want to show me how much they know about that topic, that technical piece, right? So I'm really good technical. That's how I get my internal view of myself. So I want to share that with other people. It's a natural thing to do.
Yep.
Whereas salespeople are not like that. They're judged by the result of how many deals they've closed and how much revenue they've generated.
Yep.
And so just managing that type of person is completely different, and holding them accountable to their actions is completely different. And so the first step that we say to the founder of a business that's got to that stage where they're in that, let's start to scale this up and think about a sales team, that's when we need to have a look at what the sales framework is. And the first part of that is really to look at planning. And so as a business owner, you're saying, I want to do $2 million worth of revenue this year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how much am I going to do as a founder? I might be doing $1 million. That means I've got a gap of $1 million I need to fill. And is that, when I sell my product, am I selling it as a 3-year subscription, for example? So I've got to sell $3 million so I can recognize $1 million as revenue, and just have the concepts around how much do I have my sales team sell, or what's the gap that I need that sales team to fill to hit my business goal. That's the start of a sales plan. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to do it with direct reps, or am I going to do it with a channel partner? Am I going to do it, swipe a credit card and online? So it's all about, SEO, and we don't get involved in those sorts of businesses. It's only where there's a sales team. And so that's the first part, and then it starts to build from there. And then we get on to the massively entertaining subject of hiring sales reps.
So before you probably dive in and think about hiring a sales rep, because we've tried a few in the past, we found we didn't have enough like collateral or processes in place to give them something to move forward and fill that gap for us. So we were still doing a lot of the heavy lifting because there wasn't a process. But over time, I think we've developed a process. We know what that market fit is for what we're selling and how we can communicate it well. Plus, we've got a lot of assets created now, so you then can draw from a library and share things. Is that an approach that you tell everyone to do before they even think about bringing someone in? Or do they bring someone in to help set that up?
A little from column A, a little from column B, and it depends on the business and where they're at. There's no real clear rule around that.
Yep.
The trap that we often see at that stage is that as the founder, and you were talking about your passion and your why and your reason, and that's what you've gone out and sold. As your product develops, you get really proud of your product, right? And subtly your view moves from that why and purpose into my product, my baby. And often what we see is that you do a whole bunch of product training and get a whole bunch of product collateral, and you put the product at the center of what you're selling, and you turn selling into telling. And selling's not telling. Selling's about listening. So when we get to that stage of your business, your collateral needs to be going back to what's the value that our product or our solution delivers to the organization? What are the pains that it satisfies?
Mm-hmm.
And what's the why? What's the reason? And so how do we have a collateral to reflect that, not a bunch of feature functions that are in the product? That stuff's there, it's good, it's helpful. Like, does it come in green? Yes, it does. But if you go into a feature function cell, the first thing people are talking about is comparing you to others, and it becomes a price conversation for the features and functions they get. Where if it's if you're solving a pain and it's value, then it's an investment, right? It's less about what's this going to cost me. It's more like, I've got $1 million problem. I need to solve it. So I'm happy to spend $100,000 on this software to solve my $1 million problem.
Yep. And then, yeah, speaking to those like features and functions as specs, that's serving a specific type of buyer as well. So you probably need to understand who you're talking to.
Yeah, absolutely. Get an understanding of who, in that research phase, you would have understood the sort of markets that you fit in, the sort of companies that fit, and also the sort of people who make that buying decision. So, for example, if I'm selling a particular type of finance software, am I selling that to the accountant, or am I selling it to the CFO, or am I selling that to their external accountant to get them to do it, or am I selling it to the owner of the business? So there's different people at different levels of the organisation, which is where we've got to have that target person or persona that we're selling to. And also, you know that this is a solution that fits into an organisation that might have 200 staff up to 500 staff, but once we get up to 700, it doesn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
But they've got to have 200 because it's the size of the problem that they have justifies the spend.
Yep.
And so that's the sort of stuff that you really want before you start looking at hiring a salesperson.
Yes, it's really having a solid understanding of your product or your service, how it benefits and what value it actually brings.
That's
and
right.
then not just telling people about, oh, it can do X and Y. Because there's 10 other products that can probably do the same thing.
Yeah, and sales has got a bad reputation. There's some dodgy reps, no question. But you look at all the movies that have sales as a theme to it, and it's all about that push sell, right? That sell me this pen, or get on the phone and make 1,000 calls, and the coffee's for winners, not for losers. You're a loser, go away. All those sorts of movies really give the view that sales is about, I've got to craft the perfect pitch and somehow trick somebody into buying something they don't want. That's not sales. When we're talking enterprise sales or selling to businesses, B2B, and it's a complex sale, our job as salespeople is to help them make the right buying decision.
Yeah.
And when I say to new reps or reps starting out, said that number one rule is help someone make a buying decision. A number two rule, once we understand enough about what they're looking for and we firmly believe that we've got the right solution, number two kicks in, which is sell them our product, right? Help them make a buying decision that is us. And I can't do that if I don't know you.
Yeah, okay. Yep. Because you need to know what problems you're solving for that person or what problems they may have.
That's right. And the whole product push, I've got all these features and functions. The first thing I want to do is talk to you about my product because I'm so proud of my product. It's like going to a social function and pulling out baby photos and saying, look at my baby. You're not going to have many social engagements if you just show people pictures of your baby all the time.
Yep.
And it's the same with people that have built a product. They go, I've got this great product, you should buy it. And it's like, no, let's find out a little bit about you first.
Yeah, okay. So it's not... I'm not sure how to word it. So it's not just pushing it in someone's face.
That's right. It's helping them make a buying decision, right? So, there are ways about going about sales that makes it easier, but the primary role is to help. My role is to help you make a buying decision.
Yep. Yeah. So the most experience I have outside of Aerion trying to sell solutions to people is probably when you go to like a retail store, somewhat analogous, but not really. But when I purchase something, if I'm buying TV, for example, I probably spent 3 to 6 months researching what TV to the nth degree, every possible detail. So when I go into the store, I know what I want. I'm just there for price at that point. So when someone comes up and talks to me about something, I already know more about the product they're selling that they're trying to sell me, but I'm a different use case. I'm that technical person who tries to tell you how much they know.
Yeah. And the same thing happens with selling your solution, right? That the educated buyer will be online researching, listening to your podcasts, all over your socials, just to see who are the sort of people that I want to talk to.
Yep.
And there's various surveys that say that by the time an organisation talks to you in an enterprise sale, they're anywhere between 56 and 80% through their buying process.
Okay, so they've already run it up the chain a few times and they've gotten to go ahead.
They not as much that, it's more the research that they've done.
Okay, yeah, so they've done the background prep and know that that's going to work for them. So
yes.
Is that similar to where you hear statements online saying that you need to have like 10, 16, whatever that number is, touch points before you actually get someone across the line?
Yes, all that's right. It does change. I remember when I was selling quite really complex solutions, we would say, just in terms of asking for the order, you'd have to ask for the order 9 times.
Oh, wow.
Right? That was just a rule of thumb that we used. And you wouldn't be as blatant as saying, hey, can I have the order? But you'd say, right, so should I send you the statement of work?
Yep.
And you're just sort of testing to see whether it's ready to close. But yes, there are a lot of touch points that you have to have with someone. It's that whole sequence of know, like, trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they know you before they've spoken to you.
Yep. And like you mentioned, with having content out there and having a presence online, you're already filtering out some of the like tire kickers, the people that don't like you just because of what they see. You're not going to have those conversations because that presence is doing that for you.
Yes, it is. And also we would always encourage you to have what we call a sales methodology or a qualification methodology, so that you've got a way of filtering them out before you get too deep into a sales process and waste a bunch of time.
Yeah, I've had several conversations over the years where it's 2-3 hours sitting down to have a conversation. Person doesn't even know what they're talking about, but they want to just pitch. And I've got an idea. What's it going to cost to build? And then you sit down, then you tell them the price, and then you never hear from the person again.
Yeah.
If you had the right way to gate them, then you wouldn't have to worry about that.
Yeah. That's right. It's those questions. I mean, everyone talks about the three phases of sales, like the start, the middle, and the end, right? At the start, it's all about getting to the point where the prospect is saying in their mind, or even directly to you, yeah, you understand me, you get me. That at that point in time, you've earned the right to talk to them about your solution, which is the middle bit. And so a lot of people go in and start talking about the solution straight away, but you haven't actually earned the right yet.
Yep.
And so when the prospect gets to the point and they're acknowledging, yeah, this person understands me, then I can talk about my solution. And then when they start asking questions at the end, that often people will call them closing questions, like, okay, how much does this cost? That can be up front because that's budget, but then at the back it's what's the investment? Can I see your statement of work? Can I talk to reference customers? Things like that. That's an indication that they're telling you, I now understand your solution. I understand that solution solves my problems. Now I'm ready to talk turkey and get this thing closed.
Okay. It's very methodical.
Yeah.
So
it's human behavior, right?
Yeah, it is. You just have to frame it that way. I'm more technical, so I think of things in steps and processes and algorithms. So I don't. Yeah. I never stop to think of it from the other viewpoint.
Yeah, from the buyer's perspective, right? And so when you're the buyer and you're buying that fridge, you've done your research and you go in, you want to talk to somebody who's only showing you those sorts of fridges that you want. Like, I want the double door, I want the freezer on the left, I want this on the right, I want the water fountain on the outside, those sorts of things. And if they're just showing you those fridges, in your mind you go, hey, this guy gets me. This person gets me.
It's meeting your needs effectively at that point and showing you your options.
Yep, and you might go through and look for six or seven fridges in the place, narrow it down to 2 or 3, get there, and then the questions you start asking about is, are they in stock? Can I get it delivered tomorrow? All those sorts of questions, which the salesperson is then going, okay, they've made a decision, they're happy, they've got a solution, they're now looking at other factors that are important.
Yep. Yeah, that all makes sense. So then, if you're in an organization, you've gone to the point where you've done your research, you know who your customer is, how you're talking to them. You've gone through that point where you can actually sell, and you say, if you're looking for that 2 million target, you can consistently hit the million on your own, and you're looking to bring in the salesperson. What are the sort of steps you need to do to then be able to support them to come in? And what do you need to have in place? Because there's no point bringing them in too early if you're not ready.
That's a great question. We often see the sales rep, they're going to be riding in on the white horse and solve all my problems because I've now hired a sales rep, and then you just leave them to fail. And so the sales rep does need a lot of support to be successful. So when we do that upfront blueprint and look at the sales DNA, a sales rep will often, in their interviewing, be trying to figure that out themselves. What's the sales DNA of your business? So it's, okay, first time I'm going in, have I got pre-sales support? Okay, who's going to be my pre-sales person? That might be you. So I'm going to support you. You take me into the deals at the right time. We'll do that 4-legged call. And so you need to be really clear with them what their territory is, what their target is, what their commission plan is, and then how you're going to onboard them. And so the onboarding, yes, there does need to be some product training in there, but that's not the be all and end all. It really does need to be about that. How do our buyers buy? How are we going to go out to market? Where are our leads coming from? And it's the type of rep that you want. So I want this rep to go out and get new business, so entirely new customers, or I've got quite a good base and you might still be focused on those new customers, and this might be a rep that you're bringing in to try and get revenue out of your existing customers.
Okay.
And so just understanding what type of rep that you want, and your funnel will tell you. If you've got nothing in the top, you need a like a cold calling type of rep, like a SDR, they call that a sales development rep, or a BDM who's business development type rep. But if your funnel's got lots of customers in there, then you might need an account executive or a client manager, something like that, to go in, account manager, to go in and work with your existing base. So just understanding that. Also looking in the right place for a sales rep. A lot of people look in the wrong place and look for the wrong things. Salespeople are pretty good at interviewing.
Well, they can sell.
The worst performing reps interview often the best because they get the most practice out of it.
Okay. Or is it that they're good at selling themselves as well?
Yes,
maybe
they're good at selling themselves, but most people's perspective on a sales rep is someone who talks a lot and is an extrovert.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas some sales reps are brilliant. They ask the best questions. So I always say the best reps ask the best questions, and they can be quite introvert. And so they don't interview very well at all. I've had interviewed some terrible reps, but their performance has been fantastic. The interview's been just like not good. I've had to argue to get them to bring them on board because I'm like, hey, this person, they're introverted, but let's have a look. Think about the questions they asked us. They were quite insightful questions. They didn't talk a lot. They asked most of the questions, and they actually got us talking about ourselves more than us asking them and then talking about themselves.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's what you want to look out for. And if you're looking on, I won't use any names, but if you're looking on platforms where people are looking for jobs all the time, the reps that you will attract are the reps that are looking for jobs that haven't done very well. The rep you want is the rep that's already doing well somewhere else. And we highly encourage the use of recruitment specialists to find sales reps.
Okay, because otherwise just having a larger pool doesn't help you in this situation, because if they're looking for work, then what's happened, or they may be out, but it's just going to be a smaller group of people that are looking and transitioning rather than the ones that aren't performing as well. Yeah. So in bringing in say if you're looking at a technical business, if you've got like a SaaS product or an agency that's consulting, and you're bringing in the sales rep, from my experience, a lot of things is, you see, it's lead generation, as we call it. How are you going to get the leads? Do you position that differently than what you think of like a sales rep, or is that just a different kind of sales rep function? Yeah,
they call it an SDR, is that version, as a sales development rep. And leads is that's an issue for lots of organisations, of course. If you're a business that gets lots of referrals and lots of inbound, you obviously then don't need a sales function to do that cold calling, shall we say, or that lead generation piece. I mentioned before that there are three parts of the sales: there's the open and the middle and the close. Mm-hmm. I could count on my hand the reps were good at all three.
Okay.
All right. So reps,
different skills.
It's different skills. So you might meet a rep who is quite sociable, good at building relationships really quickly. They're great at the middle, at the start. They'll build those relationships, but because they value those relationships, they're often, or mostly, not very good at the close, because they don't want to ruin the relationship by asking for an order and being a little bit forceful sometimes. Okay. Or not forceful, maybe ruthless. They want to keep talking to that person, so the sales cycle goes on and on and on and on and on.
So the relationship is important reps, for them.
Yeah, and those reps that are good at that closing phase, they're like, I'm only talking to people that are ready to make a buying decision, and they're not interested in making relationships with everybody out in the marketplace. at the first part. So just knowing what sort of rep you want is important. And specifically on the leads, often if you hire someone in-house, they want to then become an account manager or a BDM. And so just as you get them trained up and they're good, they say, well, I'm going to leave unless you promote me. Because it is seen as a bit of a step up to go from an SDR to a BDM, business development manager. And so what we found most successful, our clients and even ourselves, is to outsource that. There are plenty of good agencies out there that do that lead generation piece for you, and that's something that you would look at as a potential rule of thumb in a complex sales environment would be probably 3 reps and 1 SDR.
Oh, well, okay.
So having that lead generation person deliver a bunch of leads for each of those reps. Yep. The reps should also be, no matter, even if you've got this process going with the lead generation, the reps should also have some sort of component to generate their own leads. Like you want them to network a little bit and get out there and get references and stuff like that. And if all you're doing is giving leads to them and they're getting pumped with leads, you think that's a good thing. But some sales reps, if they've got in too many leads, they won't treat the leads with the respect that they deserve. And as soon as there's any pushback, they'll move on to the next one.
Okay. It's just too hard basket and there's plenty of fruit there, so just throw that aside.
Yeah. Got the lead with Anthony at Dev, in the DevReady business, and where, I have a meeting with you and you push back a little bit and go, oh, he's too hard to deal with. Whereas if I kept at it, you might be the perfect client for us and you might be looking, but you've just asked questions in a way that I went, nah, it's too hard.
Yep. That's interesting that. So yeah, if there's too many opportunities, things will get missed by the people because then they think that they've got more opportunities, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, and commission plans. So if they've made their number or they've made their bonuses, are they going harder to close the deals off, or are they saving some of those to the next financial year? So there's a whole bunch of things to look at in managing the behaviour of the sales reps and to get them to be aligned to the things that you need in your business in terms of when you need the revenue. Because
if it's commission based and you've got a cap per quarter or per financial year, etc., then they're going to be playing a game depending on what time of year it is. And just stalling because then it's in their interest to do that.
Can be. Yeah. And for the complex stuff, I wouldn't have a cap either. I just noticed you said that word. I wouldn't have a cap I'd have an uncapped commission. Because if you get your commission plan right, if they overachieve, all that revenue is coming into you.
Yeah, it's no problem then, the way I understand it. If you're getting the revenue coming in and the projects are coming in or the sales, then giving a constant commission back shouldn't be a problem.
That's right.
Yeah, it's right. Unless you're offering commission on some weird structure where it's before the money comes in or before projects are completed or whatever it may be, then you may dig yourself into a hole. Yeah.
And the two things of the commission is think about when it's earned and when it's paid. They're separate. I could earn it on closing the sale, but I get paid when the customer pays.
Yeah, that's how it has to be. And then, depending on the projects, like if it's a development, that could be phased out as well. So there's different levels of payments of projects or different things that are signed off at different points as well.
Yeah. And you can have some bonus, like let's say you really need some projects quickly. You might say, well, I'm paying full commission on January and February's deals. You don't have to wait for the deal to be paid for, or the development to evolve over the next 12 months, because I just want to get a bit of a kick. So then your rep's behaviour changes pretty quickly.
I can imagine. They'd be very incentivized at that point.
Yeah, so that's right.
What are some sort of key things that you need to have set up as a foundation so that when you go into an organization to help them get set up to be able to run on their own after that 6 to 12 month engagement with you?
Yep. The planning piece is all connected, right? So I've got to do we need a business to say this is the revenue that we want to do, so that we can then have some idea of what's the sales plan to get to that. And the sales plan would say, hey, actually we need 3 reps. We've got to do 3 million, so I need 3 reps. And then the reps need to have their territory plans. If you're targeting specific accounts, then we want to have account plans. You want to have deal plans. You want to make sure that you understand how we're going to hold people accountable. what's the cadence we're going to run through? What's the sales meeting look like? How do we run the sales meeting so they don't become 2-hour pipeline fest? How do we run a sales meeting where everyone's engaged for that? I think sales meetings should be half an hour, 45 minutes. That's it. We don't go on and on in the sales meeting. But then we get in depth in one-on-ones. How do I run my one-on-ones with the reps? How often do I run my one-on-ones? How do we plan for the call that we're going to make? What's our weekly planning look like? What's our pre-call planning look like? Our pre-demo or pre-presentation? How do we prepare for presentations? How do we qualify that we're going to actually talk to the right people, those that are going to make a buying decision? And then making sure that you've got that sales DNA, if you like, that just makes you execute and execute and execute. And so that's sort of the nutshell of the broad brush of what we need to see in place. And what we leave the business with is all of those processes. We've done the mentoring, we've done the training, and the templates are there as well. So we deliver the template. So if you don't know how to run a sales meeting, we've got a template how to run a sales meeting. You don't know how to run a one-on-one with a rep, a template for running that. You don't have account plans, template for that. Territory plans, template for that. So everything's sort of templatized, and part of the process is they brand it as part of their internal sales framework.
Yep. So it's really setting up that strong, solid foundation on having a successful pipeline running, a machine that just can churn without then you having to come back in because it's been set up correctly from the start. That's
right. We say build and manage a high-performance sales team, and you want predictable, sustainable revenue. All right. And so, and one of the things I didn't talk about was forecasting and making sure that forecasting so you can do your business planning properly and make decisions on when you need to hire people.
So just one thing probably before we wrap up will be on sort of touching on that forecasting then with, so you forecasting and probably a bit of like diversifying. So how would you diversify sort of your incoming channels or streams or leads or whatever it may be? So then you're not relying on solely 100% referral business unless that is sustainable.
It can be sustainable. We're sort of back to the lead process. So you just need to look at what your channels for leads are. So a great source of leads right now will be your old pipeline. So if you go and look in your old pipeline, we call that Coco, come out. So come out wherever you are. And there will be people in there that you spoke to 2 years ago or 12 months ago or 3 years ago that didn't make a decision to go with you. And they may have made a horrible decision and their development is in a complete disaster. There will be leads in there. So going back and regularly looking at that's a good thing. Nurturing your existing customers and nurturing those that didn't buy is just as important, so that you can capture that. Referrals is a good place that you mentioned referrals, but are you actively going to your customers and asking them, what was the result that we delivered to you? Is there anyone who could you refer us to? And then will you refer us? So active program of doing that. And then being active in social media, being active in your marketplace, in your community. Prospects like to see that you've got a giving nature and that you give to that community. So that's probably the best sources. They're all the best sources. Hopefully you get some inbounds from your website, and that your either outsourced or insourced SDR is driving leads. And then on the forecasting piece, as the business owner, you need good sales forecasts so you can make hiring decisions ahead of the curve, so that when they do go nuts and sell $1 million worth of services in the last month of the year, that you're prepared for that and that you've got a runway on that. And so doing the qualification process properly is the key to forecasting properly.
Okay. So it's making sure you don't get like the tire kickers coming into the pipeline.
Yeah. So if I know that you have to do something, and a good question to ask is, what happens if you do nothing? Have they got budget? So sometimes the sales process is to get budget. Sometimes it's to spend budget. So just understanding the budget. Is the budget there? And understanding that you have a unique solution that the customer understands that is important. That'll stop you losing deals at the death. And just understanding what their decision-making process. And if you've got those things from your qualification, there's some more complexities around qualification, but if you've got those basics in place, then your forecasting should be accurate.
Yep.
just be careful of falling in the trap that if you've got a pipeline and you say there's 3 deals that I'm forecasting, and I roll them up into a combined, I've got 75% chance. Well, one of those deals might be for $10, one deal for $1 million, and one for $10 million. So doing percentages across that's not going to matter, because each deal is either a win or a loss. It's not you don't win 75% of the deal. And so just go beyond those, just the raw percentages, and look at each deal. So, okay, the $10 million deal, I've got a really good chance of winning that. So I might be I'm going to forecast most of that.
Yeah.
And there are techniques where you get rid of the top end too, because they're what we call bluebirds, the top end, the big ones, and just focus on all those deals that I've got, say, that are around 200, 300,000. And if I've got 10 of those, I might win 6, I might not win. And so you can use your percentages a little bit better there.
Yeah. Yeah. So just try not to aggregate too much, and just the bell curve. Focus on the middle. Leave the outsides here.
Correct. And make sure you've asked those right questions. So it's not, we often say hope is not a strategy. You ask a sales rep, are they going to make a decision? I hope they do. Well, that's not a strategy.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of probably like the referral work can be, is I hope I get people coming in this month, because you don't know how else to get them. So there's been plenty there, a lot of eye-opening stuff it sounds simple once you say it, but there's been a lot of thought and like experience going into actually understanding that.
Yeah. All the mentors in our team have got 15 years of sales leadership experience and 10 years worth of sales, direct sales behind them in a B2B environment. So, we talk about having our experience, having our IP, and working with the founder of that business to get the growth.
Yeah, and having that support is invaluable, really. You can't put a price on that. You can try and forecast it, but you can't put a price on it.
That's right. And we often get asked to hang around after. Like they might be ready and hired a new sales leader because the business is growing, and they say, can you hang around and help mentor the team and stay around for the next 12 months. So we've got customers that we've been with for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. And that's a testament to what you can provide then.
Yeah, exactly.
So if anyone wants to reach out and find more about what you offer there, Paul, how can they do that?
If they can reach out to me directly, paul@salesdirectorcentral.com, or they can go to our website, salesdirectorcentral.com. There's no AU, but it'll find us if you do the AU, but salesdirectorcentral.com. And in the top, there's book a call. So you can book a call with me or my co-founder, JD.
Yep. All right, we'll add those links to the show notes as well, and share that all over socials as well. And hopefully that someone can reach out if they're in need of that at that point in time.
All right. Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul. It's been a pleasure having you on, and thanks for the chat today.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Bye.